Hi Mum! You do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Alina, Director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits and my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything is backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hi Mum! Thanks for coming today for another episode. This one is very exciting. I get this one all the time. And full transparency, I sometimes still have trouble with boundaries, and I haven't been using them as much or often as I should. And I think it's one of those things that it's like a constant evolution. So understanding what we need in life, how to be the version of ourselves that we need, and obviously being mentally strong enough to believe in ourselves enough to be able to do boundaries. So this will be an amazing episode, definitely a keeper. So understanding what it is, and then hopefully I can give you inspiration and a whole lot of different tips that you can then use in your own life. So this episode is going to be a lot of information. So even if you wanted to take notes or save it so then you can listen to it again or something. But yeah, it's amazing. And the thing about boundaries, it's not that simple, not that black and white. And we'll also understand that as well, how our biology, our hormones, as well as our previous traumas or upbringings can actually prevent putting up boundaries or even feeling like we are allowed to. And especially if that's never been demonstrated for us, it can be one of the most difficult things in the whole entire world. And then we accidentally just go into this people-pleasing mode because it's so easy, right? So, have you ever been around someone when they do something that makes you really uncomfortable, but you don't know what to say without offending them, and you don't want any drama or to make a scene, right? So when people don't take no for an answer. So it's essentially wanting to stand up for yourself or speak up, but you have feeling shamed, like there's something wrong with me, or feeling powerless. Quickly about shame, there's a difference between shame and guilt. So guilt is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, let me fix it, I'll resolve that. Shame is, oh my gosh, that's awful, I can't believe I did that again, I'm such an idiot, why do I always do that? There's something wrong with, okay? So that's the difference between guilt and shame, okay? So understanding that boundaries is so difficult to do around friends or in-laws, and then sometimes even at work. So your work colleagues, especially if there are different power imbalances. So there is a great art to successfully putting up healthy boundaries, and obviously there can be a lot of barriers by using your voice or even believing that I am allowed to use my voice. So understanding that as humans and as mammals, we need to feel like we belong. So remember safety in numbers, that's because we're mammals. So sociology suggests the worst punishment, so this is by a book called Alain de Botton. The worst punishment in the world is being outcasted or ostracized. At least if you punish me or make me be accountable in any way, but if I'm rejected, outcasted or ostracized, this can feel like the worst pain. And so, especially because we are humans and mammals, we always need to feel belonging. So when we do feel like we're ostracized in some way, sometimes in our biology it signals terror within our bodies, and it feels like it's threatening our own survival. Our brains still think we are cavemen, so obviously we are safer in numbers, and that's why it's really hard to disappoint people. So people pleasing can also be then taught in childhood. Do as I say, otherwise you're going to get a punishment, okay? So as adults, Sometimes I feel like I need to conform and people please to make others happy, and sometimes that can be at the expense of my own happiness, because I don't want to feel like I am a disappointment. I want to be able to make people happy. Sometimes it's just easier, okay? Sometimes I also don't want the backlash from other people. And especially as women, sometimes it can be dangerous to say no. Some people can feel that in their bones when I say that, okay? So also, it's impossible to have a boundary if we have low self-worth. So if you have low self-worth and low self-esteem, it is impossible to have boundaries. So why would we stand up for ourselves if we don't actually value ourselves or our own voice? And this is something that I need to help you change, okay? So, quick tip to get higher levels of self-esteem and your own internal worth, we need to first start with self-compassion. So hopefully this next bit will give you a bit of understanding about yourself and then a bit of self-compassion, and then to build up those boundaries with realistic strategies, okay? So while boundaries are a fundamental aspect of a healthy relationship and obviously self-care, there are some lesser known facts surrounding boundaries that are worth exploring, okay? So 1, boundaries can vary in different cultures. So in different cultural norms and different societal expectations, this heavily influences how individuals perceive and enforce boundaries. So what is considered acceptable or appropriate in one culture may differ significantly from another. And I think that's very interesting to understand, because sometimes if other people have been raised in other cultures or somewhere else around the world and they can use their voice, and sometimes in our culture that can seem a little bit forthcoming or forthright or arrogant in some way. And so that's understanding this could be culturally based. 2, boundary violations can be subtle. So boundary violations aren't always obvious. They can manifest in subtle little ways, such as so even when you put up a boundary, the person can accidentally, quote, unaccidentally violate your boundary, but in really little subtle ways, such as invasive questioning, disregarding your personal space, and then sometimes emotional manipulation. And if I don't even know that I'm being manipulated, next thing you know, all my boundaries are gone, okay? Number 3, boundary setting is a skill that can be learnt. So asserting boundaries effectively is a skill that can be cultivated and improved over time. So if you've never done anything before, it's really difficult. So imagine the first time you ever used a fancy can opener. It was difficult, you didn't know how it worked, stuff went everywhere, I ended up cutting my finger. This is the worst, right? After a couple of times and understanding, I now know when I have a can opener, I can open it and it's fine. There's no blood, right? It's amazing. Same with boundaries. It's not something individuals are inherently born knowing what to do. It's something that we have to learn. And I'm sorry about that analogy. That was awful. So my apologies, okay? Number 4, healthy boundaries promote intimacy. So while boundaries are often associated with creating distance or separation or rupture or conflict, they actually play a critical role in fostering intimacy and connection within relationships. So this is sometimes a false belief or false narrative that we've had and experienced. But if you can understand that if I have an honest, respectful relationship with someone who I love and trust, respect for each other's boundaries grows that trust, grows that safety and mutual respect to flourish. So even in romantic relationships, friendships, work, if you are nervous in any way, understanding that when you are able to enforce healthy boundaries, it actually creates closeness and intimacy, okay? 5, boundaries can evolve. So boundaries are not static. They actually shift over time based on individual growth. Now you think about, you're not the same person as you were 5 years ago, and you're not the same person you were 10 years ago. So this constant evolution needs to help with our boundaries as well. So obviously changing circumstances, relationship dynamics, and self-esteem and self-worth. Hopefully your self-esteem and self-worth grows over time as well. So it's essential to periodically reassess and adjust boundaries to ensure that they align with your needs and your values. It's almost like every tax time, that's when I start to do a whole evolution of myself, my needs, what I want. Do you know? And it's that discipline of respect for myself, of growing forward, okay? 6, my favorite thing, self-compassion is key. So setting and enforcing boundaries requires self-compassion and self-validation. So it's normal to feel guilty or anxious when asserting boundaries, okay? I get it, believe me. But recognizing that boundaries are essential for well-being can then help alleviate these feelings. So our brains like predictability and control, and sometimes our brains automatically assume and predict something negative that's going to happen. They call that anticipation anxiety, ladies. So we automatically catastrophize and assume the worst. But once I start practicing my boundaries, it gives me this well-being and sense of control that everything's going to be okay, and then it alleviates these feelings, okay? Number 7, boundary violations can impact physical health. So chronic boundary violations, such as enduring abusive relationships or consistently overextending yourself, saying yes to everything all the time, can take a toll on your physical health. So stress-related illnesses, fatigue, and other issues may arise as a result of one of those boundary violations. You know those people that you see and they're flaky and a pushover and will just do anything that you say? Those people are actually, majority of the time, negatively influenced because they're unable to put up their boundaries. And even if they did want to say no, they can't do it. I just can't do it. So they keep on putting stuff on their plate. And especially in abusive relationships, being compassionate and understanding that it can actually be dangerous to say no, and it can be dangerous to put up boundaries. So even though I'm giving you this magical lesson and strategies and saying you need to do it, realistically in life, it's not that easy. So this is also me helping you get the bigger perspective and understanding that theoretically, yes, we should have boundaries and yes, we should enforce them. But if you are in a dangerous situation or emotionally abusive or you're stuck in some way, boundaries can actually make things a lot worse. So that's a whole nother episode altogether about protecting yourself, okay? So if you are in that situation, I love you. Take everything with a grain of salt, and all of this is for your own future ammunition. I'm dyslexic. Ammunition, okay? Your future arsenal to be able to protect yourself, okay? All right. Number 8, boundaries protect creativity and productivity. So if we can establish boundaries over time, space, and energy, it's essential for preserving one's creativity and productivity. This is real talking to the left, right brain people, right? Clear boundaries allows individuals to focus their energy on meaningful pursuits and preventing burnouts. No one wants burnout, okay? Anything we can do for meaningful pursuits in life to protect our creativity and to protect our productiveness. And that helps mums with our mental load, because sometimes that mental load never ends, you know? And then what do we get? Decision fatigue, all right? Number 10, boundary work is ongoing. So maintaining healthy boundaries is a lifelong process that requires continual self-reflection, communication, and adjustment. It's not a one-time task, but one of those hashtag journeys of self-discovery and growth, okay? So now, let's quickly look at some reasons as to why women may not understand or enforce boundaries. So this could be socialization and gender norms. So I'm a social worker. This is really important for me because you are not a problem. What's happened around you in your environment, in your circumstances, how you've been raised and grown up, if you've had money, if you haven't, if you've been marginalized in any way, continue, that's impacted you significantly somehow and makes you have sense on who you are in the world and what I can do. And then it can have an impact on my identity. So understanding for women, our social expectations and gender norms as a woman, as a little girl, play a significant role in shaping how women perceive and express boundaries. So from a young age, girls are often socialized to prioritize relationships, be nurturing, and avoid confrontation, because you don't want an angry little girl, right? These cultural expectations may influence women to prioritize others' needs over their own, and then they avoid asserting boundaries for fear of being perceived as selfish or unlikable. So I don't know if you've ever heard of good girl syndrome. Good girl syndrome is be good, don't talk, don't play in dirt, do the right thing, don't speak unless you're spoken to, be kind, be respectful, that's good girl syndrome. And then how that essentially is like a constricting pressure on me on how it is to be accepted and what people expect of me. And then it's difficult. Sometimes boys have different expectations. Sometimes they don't have any of that, but sometimes they have that, don't cry, man up, be there to protect, go and do this. So it's different. Evolutionary perspective. So according to evolutionary psychologists, they propose that women's reproductive roles and caregiving responsibilities influence our behavior and our interpersonal dynamics, okay? This is talking caveman, women in the cave, we're all stuck together, right? So women have evolved to prioritize social harmony and cooperation to ensure our survival and well-being of our offspring as a social group. And we need the survival of our offspring so that our legacy can live on, okay? And this is in terms of our evolutionary biology, all of that stuff. So while these adaptive traits promote social cohesion, they might also make it challenging for women to assert boundaries assertively. And I'm pretty sure people that have boundaries, hardcore staunch boundaries, probably aren't listening to this podcast because they don't need to know, okay? It's people like me that are still learning and evolving because boundaries weren't allowed when I was little. And according to my biology, as well as a woman, to be able to not rock the boat, be nice, be kind, be likable, don't want to be ostracized, okay? So a lot of these things, if you're listening to this, probably apply to you, okay? And this one, which is my favorite because I love trauma, okay? Trauma-informed and how that influences us. From a trauma-informed perspective, several factors may contribute the difficulty women face in putting up boundaries. And trauma, just to be clear, sometimes might not be one or two significant moments in life. It could also be 1,000 little paper cuts that have happened to me, and that's my trauma. So we can have big traumas in life, they call them big T's, or little traumas in life, like little T's. But those little T's over and over and over again, messages, how I've been treated, how I've been expected to do, what's happening in my life, in my parents' relationships, in my siblings, at school, can almost feel these little T's are 1,000 paper cuts. And so these little T's and little traumas that even though I might have come from a good home and I had food on the table every night, still impact me negatively as an adult, and that makes me confused as to why. It's because it's death by paper cuts. So the impact of past experiences such as women who have experienced trauma, such as physical, emotional or sexual abuse, may have learned to suppress their own needs and prioritize the needs of others as a survival mechanism. So trauma can disrupt someone's sense of safety and trust, leading to hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is like a meerkat, always on guard, always on eggshells, always looking. And hypervigilance is the quickest way to exhaustion, okay? And then leads difficulty in establishing boundaries to protect yourself from harm, okay? Number 2, boundary violations. So trauma often involves violation of personal boundaries. This isn't even a surprise, right? Where an individual's physical or emotional boundaries are disregarded or violated by others. So even if you did have a really lovely, supportive relationships, but you ended up having a partner who was awful and traumatic and would violate your boundaries often, and it might not have been obvious in the beginning, but over and over again, that death by paper cuts. As a result, survivors of trauma may struggle to recognize or assert their boundaries in future relationships, fearing that asserting your boundaries will result in rejection, abandonment, or even further harm. And so that's understanding you as a whole, as a person, okay? Understanding as well about shame and self-blame. So women who have experienced trauma may internalize, keep everything inside, feelings of shame, guilt, self-blame, leading them to believe that they are unworthy of setting boundaries or asserting their needs. So if you've been told something so many times, you start to believe it. And that's where that worthlessness, self-blame, shame, I'm not good enough comes in. So I might fear judgment or rejection from others if I do assert my boundaries, or even fear of punishment, whether that be real or perceived, okay? So trauma survivors may unconditionally reenact the dynamics from past traumas, so including difficulties with boundaries. So it can be really difficult if I'm repeating patterns and cycles as well, that I can't put up boundaries. Obviously, if any of this is upsetting or triggering for you in any way, I'm always happy for you to contact me for a debrief, or if you need to tell your story, or if you need strategies of any way or resources. I'm always here and happy to connect with you, okay? So if this is triggering, understanding how all of this has negatively impacted you, and understanding that you are not a problem, what's happened around you and what you've been facing has influenced how you see the world. And listening to podcasts like this educational empowerment. There is hope for the future. I can make positive change, but I have to understand all the basics first. And that's why this is really important. All about empowering and hope and change. And I can do this, okay? I just had to quickly put that in. So if we can get back on track, there are 6 main boundaries. So physical boundary. Physical boundary is your personal space. So who can touch you, where they can touch you, when they can touch you, and how they can touch you, okay? I don't like that. I don't want a hug. No, thank you. No, I've just seen where you've put your hand and I don't want to shake it. No, thanks, okay? 2, emotional boundaries. So how you allow other people to talk to you, or if they take responsibility for their mistakes towards you, okay? Number 3, relationship boundaries. So the behavior towards yourself that you will not accept. So it can be romantic, it can be friendship, it can be families. So relationships aren't just romantic. This is all kind of relationships. What behavior will I accept and what behavior will I not tolerate? Okay? But you also have to understand this for yourself. So time. Time is a really good boundary because sometimes this isn't something we ever consider. So with time, especially time poor mums, working, a lot of kids, all the after school curricular activities, even before the school, plus the homework and the growth, right? Boundaries. What is important to you? Where do you want to spend your time? And how much do you dedicate to yourself? So having boundaries, time one can be, well, even with work, I don't do anything after 8 o'clock. or even 7 o'clock. That's my clock off time, okay? That's the time where I want to stop. Material. So limits on how much you spend, as well as resources or money you give away and loan to others. So these are material items, and these are boundaries. And one of my boundaries could be, I don't want to lend money ever to friends. I don't like things sticky, or even if I do want to lend money, I need to have boundaries on what that looks like. It could even be clothing. If you've got a sister, okay, what are your boundaries with your resources and your clothes and your shoes, okay? And how to enforce that. Finally, sexual boundaries. So you are the one that decides your comfort with your own sexual experiences, as well as the sharing of personal details. And sometimes, depending on groups of friends or work colleagues, if people are comfortable sharing personal details of that nature, that's fine. Have at it, go mental, you do that. But if I'm not comfortable, one of my boundaries is I'm not going to share my bedroom stuff with anyone because I don't feel comfortable. Okay? All right. Now, the most important bit. Da, 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 how to learn boundaries. So, this is like one of the evolutionary things of understanding. It can be overwhelming at the moment, but learning all of the, this is part of a recipe. We need to know all the ingredients to make the recipe, which is boundaries. So the first is self-awareness. So some people aren't self-aware. I don't know anything about what's going on. So that's obviously the first thing that we need to have a look at and address, okay? If I was like a mindset coach. So self-awareness. Understanding your own needs, your own desires and limits is crucial for setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. Because I could set a boundary, they could destroy it. So how am I going to maintain that? Okay? It involves introspection. So looking inward, understanding myself on a deeper level, and then reflecting on what are my values, what are my preferences, and what are my boundaries. And if boundaries are really difficult to understand, then break it down easy. Okay? Physical, behavioral, relationships, time, material, and sexual. They could be like little goals. Maybe one boundary from each a week. Okay? Assertiveness. So women, as we spoke earlier, may be socialized to prioritize other people's needs as a people pleaser over my own to avoid conflict. So assertiveness involves expressing your own needs and then boundaries confidently and respectfully. So you can still be assertive without being rude, okay? You can still be assertive without being abrasive. And that's about when you're going to be assertive, to do it in a way that's authentic to you. So even if you've never been assertive before, maybe even finding little alter egos like as Beyonce or Pink or I don't even know who else is out there. Do you know? To be able to model your behavior over and pretend and find what fits for you. Okay? Number 3 is communication. So understanding effective communication is essential for establishing and maintaining boundaries. So this includes clearly expressing boundaries and actively listening to other people's boundaries. So I could be throwing out all these boundaries, but I'm not actually listening to other people's, and I'm then accidentally violating, okay? A really good communication technique is the compliment sandwich, ladies. Compliment sandwich is essentially, if you can picture a sandwich, 2 pieces of bread with the filling in the middle. So the 2 pieces of bread is positive. The bit in the middle is your truth about what you want to say. And women tend to over-talk, over-explain, over-justify because we sometimes have been made to feel like a burden or an inconvenience. So we over-talk to please excuse me and want to talk about everything about why I'm doing it and justify it. Like, no, stop it. Do a compliment sandwich, 1 sentence, your truth or your boundary, and the bottom of the sandwich, which is positive. Compliment sandwich for a boundary. I really like it when you come and visit me. Positive. next time that you come over, would it be alright if you just took your shoes off at the front door, please? Boundary. Third one is, I do love your shoes though, and I would just like for them to keep safe, but as well as everything. But I would like, do you know what I'm saying? So understanding little techniques that you can do. Compliment sandwich is really good, effective communication. Short, concise, to the point. 4, consistency. So this can be a really hard one. So consistency, enforcing boundaries, reinforces the importance and helps to establish expectations in relationships. So consistency is important because sometimes, especially hormonally, when I'm going through one of my, just say like luteal phase in my hormones or PMS, and I'm upset and I'm frustrated, my boundaries are hardcore. Don't do this. This is how it is. Really hardcore, right? And then after I've had my period and everything relaxes and I'm happy and fine and everything's good in the world again, all my boundaries are relaxed and yeah, it doesn't matter. You can do what you want. I don't care. That's fine. So it's difficult for other people as well. I might be enforcing boundaries. I love hormones, and this is understanding ourselves as a whole. There's no blame in that at all, and there's no shame in the 4 different phases of our cycle, okay? But you also have to understand those 4 different phases in our cycle and how they impact you as a woman, okay? Because it's to do with our hormones. But then how this can impact you with your boundaries, because I need to be consistent with my boundaries no matter what's happening in my life, no matter the context of everything, because I have to be consistent with myself and then to have respect for myself as well as for those around me. Because if you're inconsistent, people aren't going to know if you're serious or not, okay? And this is about understanding what's really important to me. So, recognizing red flags, being able to identify signs of boundary violations or unhealthy dynamics in relationships is very important for protecting your own well-being. So this includes paying attention to feelings or discomfort or resentment and then trying to address them proactively, okay? And understanding that with all of this, self-worth and self-esteem, self-compassion have a huge play with boundaries. And if I don't have any of those, I can't have boundaries. So seek support. So you can either talk to friends, family members who you like and you trust, or even professionals to help you understand where this has come from, okay? So let me give you some examples of boundaries, okay? I need some time alone right now to recharge. I'm not comfortable discussing that topic. Please don't interrupt me when I'm speaking. I don't appreciate being touched without my consent. It just makes me uncomfortable, okay? I need you to respect my decisions even if you disagree. I'm not available to help you with that task right now. So you could almost see how you could do compliment sandwiches before and after, and this is the boundary. I expect to be treated with kindness and respect within this relationship. Imagine saying that to your friend, you know? I won't be tolerated, spoken to like this in a condescending manner. That'd be at work with your boss. Figuring out, even though these might sound a bit harsh and abrasive, but how you can do this in an authentic way. I'm not comfortable lending money at this time. I have other commitments and I won't be able to attend that event. Also fighting the compulsion to say sorry afterwards. I have other commitments and won't be able to attend that event. Full stop. Without people pleasing and saying sorry, okay? I need you to listen to my perspective without judgment. Please avoid from making comments about my appearance. I'm setting boundaries around my work hours, so I won't be able to work after 6 p.m. I need you to respect my dietary restrictions when planning meals. So that could be if you're diabetic or you're on a diet or if you're celiac. I need you to respect my dietary restrictions when planning meals. If that's uncomfortable for you, please let me know and I will either help contribute, but you need to respect me and not just assume, okay? I expect honesty in our communication. Can you please be more honest with me? I won't tolerate being pressured into making decisions before I'm ready. Please just give me a day and I'll come back to you. I need you to acknowledge and apologize when you've hurt my feelings, okay? And so some of these, you can almost feel like someone who's gaslighted you might have been saying these things as well. So understanding how these can be from an authentic perspective and what you actually want with your boundaries, and then how to avoid that people pleasing, like just being true to who you are. So stay calm, reinforce your boundaries, set consequences. So if you continue to ignore them, I'm going to end up not answering your calls anymore. I told you I don't want you to call me after 6 p.m. and you've done that. So I'm not going to call next time you do that, okay? Or even boundaries with your kids. I told you that if you're going to yell at me, I'm not going to be able to help you in any way. I'll speak to you when you're calm. But see, even these boundaries can be with your kids. Like maybe practice on your kids first to see how they work before you do it in the real world, okay? Always enforce your boundaries, follow through. Remember that consistency. If all of this is triggering, seek support. You can come and see me wherever you are in the world or whatever's happening. I'm always happy to help. And then always remember to reassess your relationships. If I keep on putting up my boundaries and they're constantly violated, I'm not respected, why am I here? Okay? And if it's something to do with one of those trauma responses in the past, heal your trauma first and then build your self-esteem and self-worth and then reassess boundaries. Remember, for women, saying no can be dangerous, whether the consequences or punishment can be real or perceived, okay? That can even be learned in childhood. So understanding as well, women have a different perspective than men. Boundaries are healthy and normal. And to have healthy relationships, boundaries should be respected. And if you want a good friendship with someone, you also should expect your friend to give you boundaries. So if you are having trouble setting boundaries, there are different tips that can help, okay? Remember, you need repetition, practice, consistency, and patience. If you want to be able to be kind, you need to be clear. That's Brene Brown, okay? Being unclear is unkind. And sometimes it's that inconsistency because I'm scared and I'm nervous. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. At least everyone knows where we stand. It then helps us know about respect and what we deserve, and then it can actually create and build more intimacy. Don't let people put you down or shame you for standing up for yourself. Repeat it and stand firm. If they keep breaking your boundaries, there needs to be enforced consequences. I ask you not to text me after 9. If you do it again, I'm going to block you. If they do it again, follow through and block them. You know, like if my mum's harassing me at night time, Mum, I'm going to block you. Do you know what I mean? Logically, if you don't have respect for yourself, how will others respect you and respect your needs? Respect yourself. This is the ultimate self-care, and this is how to protect yourself. And if this makes you feel nervous in any way or triggered, come and talk with someone. Look after yourself. Do some introspection. Okay? You've done really well today if you've listened to this whole thing, because it was a lot. It was pretty heavy. There was a lot of information. It went in a whole lot of different ways. But I think it can give you a better understanding that boundaries isn't just as easy as people putting up boundaries. Okay? So, if you have any questions, let me know. Even if you want to share this with one of your friends who's a people pleaser, and then in a non-threatening way, practice boundaries together. Because the thing about boundaries, if you can practice it first with non-threatening situations so you can build up your confidence, such as with your kids or with your bestie, if you like your siblings, not everyone likes their siblings, okay? But if you have someone you can practice these on first, even by sending them this podcast for them to listen, practice with each other first, and then try it in real life with real people with real boundaries, okay? And when you do it, Notice how your body is reacting and responding. Is your heart increasing? Are you getting sweaty? Do you feel embarrassed and your face is getting flushed? Okay? And then understanding how to then regulate your nervous system, calm yourself down beforehand, taking deep breaths, having a script like a compliment sandwich, and then practicing it so that you don't have these physiological symptoms next time you put up a boundary. Okay? All right, I'll stop talking. I love you, Mum. Have a fabulous day, and I hope this has been crazy helpful. Obviously, because it was a lot of information, you might have to listen to it again, if you can tolerate my voice. All right, love you, bye. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire podcast, and for that, I would like to thank you for your support. So you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at supportivetherapy_, and then you can find heaps of free resources online at www.supportivetherapy.com.au. So if today you did find my information useful, please leave a review and subscribe. By leaving a review, it's a value exchange. It's good karma. So I value your support just as much as you value my free information. And if you liked it, other mums can like it as well, hopefully, and then it can hopefully start a huge movement of people valuing mothers the way that they need to be valued. So please feel free to let me know what topics you would like to see in future episodes. Always feel free to get in touch with me in the comments. Otherwise, follow me on Supportive Therapy social media networks. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day, you beautiful mum.